The iPhone XS and XR were released over a year ago now, but is there any point in buying the XS when the 11 Pro exists? Well, you're about to find out. This is William from Wink Tech, and in this video we'll be looking at my daily driver, the iPhone XS Max, and how it stacks up in 2020. Currently, the XS Max is my daily driver, and there's no need to upgrade to the 11 Pro Max, but if you are thinking of upgrading from an older iPhone, then should you get the XS? The first problem with buying the XS is that you can't buy it in-store or from carriers because it was discontinued by Apple. You might be wondering, why would Apple discontinue a new phone so quickly? Well, it actually makes sense because Apple actually did the same thing to the iPhone X when the XS was released. Since the iPhone 11 Pro Max isn't drastically different from the XS and the XR already exist as a budget option, it really doesn't make sense for the XS to stick around. So, where does this leave the XS? First, I want to tell you about my last visit to an Apple store. I went in to look at some of the Macs and iPads as usual because those are probably the only two products I would consider buying from the actual Apple store. I was briefly looking at some of the new iPhones when an employee asked me if I wanted to buy one. I told him I already had a XS Max, so there was no need to upgrade yet, and he told me I should trade it in and upgrade to the 11 Pro Max. Out of curiosity, I looked up the trade-in price on one of the MacBooks and it came up to $500 at the most. That's not great for a phone that was $1,300 at release. But it begs the question, should you upgrade from the XS or even buy one? Let's start with the specs. The CPU is the A12 Bionic, the storage starts at 64GB and goes up to 512GB, which in my opinion is overkill for a smartphone. It also has 4GB of RAM, which is plenty for iOS, a resolution of 2688 by 1242 on the Max, and a 3174 mAh battery also on the Max. These specs are still great for 2020, and especially for iOS, which is known for great resource management. Since the A13 chip is not a huge improvement from the A12 Bionic, there really is no big performance difference when it comes to day-to-day tasks. Everything is plenty fast, and both the design and performance of the XS and 11 Pro are nearly indistinguishable in every way but one, and that is the battery. After owning the XS Max for a while, I have to say that the battery life is sufficient, but nothing to write home about. My average screen on time without charging is about 4 hours, which is good enough for most people. Keep in mind this is with my battery health at about 93%, which means if you have better battery health, you'll probably get closer to 4.5 hours of screen on time. Obviously, one of the main improvements the 11 Pro got over the XS was battery life, so it's not surprising that the 11 Pro will beat the XS in this area. However, I wouldn't say the battery life alone is enough of a reason to upgrade. Let's talk about the cameras now. Another big improvement in the 11 Pro is in the camera department. It sports 3 cameras instead of the 2 on the XS and includes a primary 12-megapixel sensor with a regular wide lens and f1.8 aperture, a telephoto lens with an f2.0 aperture, and an ultra-wide lens with an aperture of f2.4. Both of which are also 12-megapixel sensors, which means high-resolution stills and 4K video for all 3 cameras. There's one thing for sure, the 11 Pro and Pro Max gives users a lot of flexibility when it comes to taking photos, but when talking to people with the 11 Pro, they all have either said that they don't use the ultra-wide lens or they find it to be a gimmick. So take it for what it is worth, but in my opinion the 2 cameras on the XS are plenty, and the quality between them is not a huge difference except in low light. The 11 and 11 Pro both feature night mode, which allows you to take pictures in the dark that normally wouldn't be possible with regular cameras and smartphones. It's up to you how important night photography is to you, but the XS can still handle low light photos fairly well. So it seems the XS isn't too different from the 11 Pro, which is likely the reason Apple no longer sells the XS. It makes sense that Apple doesn't want to cannibalize the sales of the 11 Pro by continuing to sell the XS, but if you can still find one, should you buy it, or if you already have one, should you upgrade? To answer the first question, it depends on the deal you find. If somehow your cell phone carrier has a good deal on it, perhaps to clear the stock or find one used, then sure, go for it. But in any other situation, I would say not to get it. I certainly wouldn't go out of my way to get my hands on a XS. I'd say if you're looking for an upgrade, then you should either buy a XR or an 11. If you're really looking for an iPhone with an OLED screen, then I would say to either find a cheaper 10 or just go for the 11 Pro. For those of you that already own an iPhone XS, you're good with the phone you got. The XS and XS Max are both really solid phones in 2020. They're fast, have great cameras, high resolution OLED screens, and they will still be supported for a long time. If an Apple employee tells you to upgrade, then don't listen to them because you're not going to be gaining much in any trade-in deals. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this look at the XS Max and how it stacks up in 2020. Let me know in the comments below what phone you have, and do you think you need an upgrade? If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe if you want more content just like this. Anyway, this has been William from WinkTech, and I will see you in the next video.